It was supposed to be a normal afternoon in Maple Ridge, a quiet, slow-paced town where nothing unusual ever happened. Officer Daniels, a seasoned local cop, was out on patrol with his loyal K-9 partner, Rex. The sun was setting, casting long shadows across the cracked pavement of the old train yard. They had walked this route dozens of times, always uneventful. But this time, something felt off. Rex suddenly stopped. His body froze mid-step, tail stiff, ears pointed forward. He had locked onto something. Daniels followed his gaze and spotted it. A dusty, old suitcase tucked beneath a rusted bench, partially hidden by fallen leaves. The suitcase looked like it hadn't been touched in years. But Rex refused to move. His nose twitched, and he let out a low, barely audible whine. Daniels had learned long ago to trust Rex's instincts. Whatever was inside that suitcase, it wasn't right. As backup arrived and a crowd gathered behind police tape, the tension thickened. When the suitcase was finally opened, what they discovered silenced everyone. It wasn't just strange. It wasn't just tragic. It was something that would tear open a wound the town had tried to forget for years. Maple Ridge was a kind of town where things didn't just happen. The biggest emergency last month had been a raccoon stuck in chimney. So when Officer Daniels and his German Shepherd Rex set out for their usual patrol that afternoon, they didn't expect anything out of the ordinary. Rex had been Daniels' partner for nearly 4 years. Smart, focused, and unbelievably sharp-nosed, he had helped track lost children, sniff out stolen goods, and even once found an elderly man who had collapsed in the woods. But today, as they cut across the abandoned train yard to shorten their walk, Rex began to act strangely. He slowed. His steps grew measured. His head tilted slightly, sniffing the air. Then he stopped completely. Daniels looked ahead and saw it. An old, battered suitcase. The kind you'd see in dusty corners of thrift stores. One wheel was broken. The zipper was rusted. It was tucked under a metal bench, almost like someone had tried to hide it. Rex didn't bark. He didn't growl. He just stared, unblinking. Daniels reached for his radio. Something wasn't right. And deep down, he could feel it. This suitcase was going to change everything. Daniels wasted no time. His fingers moved quickly to his shoulder radio. Dispatch! This is Unit 7. We got a suspicious package in the old train yard, requesting backup and bomb unit for safety. Copy that, Unit 7. Officers en route. He glanced at Rex, who remained motionless. Not tense. Not aggressive. Just still, like he was trying to understand what lay beneath that dusty shell. Daniels had seen Rex bark and snap during drug busts. He had seen him rush into tight spaces to sniff out danger. But he had never seen this kind of behavior before. It was like the dog was feeling grief. Within 10 minutes, the scene had changed completely. 3 more patrol cars rolled in. Police tape went up. Civilians, drawn by the flashing lights and whispered rumors, started gathering just outside the perimeter. A few local news reporters arrived not long after. Daniels stayed near Rex, watching as the bomb squad sent in a small robotic rover to assess the suitcase. The machine rolled forward, reached out a mechanical arm, and tapped the side of the suitcase. No detonation. No reaction. Safe. Still, no one moved to open it by hand. One of the officers finally stepped forward in gloves and a face shield. Carefully, he unzipped the main compartment of the suitcase. The tension was so thick, you could hear the rasp of the zipper over the murmurs in the crowd. Inside wasn't what anyone expected. There were no wires, no metal, no money. There was a small, faded blue hoodie, neatly folded, stained with what looked like dried mud. Next to it, a pair of children's shoes, scuffed, worn out, and then a stuffed rabbit. It's one glass I was missing, and the fur had been rubbed smooth from years of being held. The officer paused, then pulled out a photograph, crumpled but still clear enough to recognize. It was a young boy, around 6 years old, grinning at the camera. On the back of the photo, written in shaky pen, Ethan, summer 3 years ago. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Daniels felt his breath catch. Ethan Collins. The name alone was enough to send chills through anyone who'd lived in Maple Ridge. The boy had gone missing 3 years earlier from the local playground. No sign of a struggle. No witnesses. Just gone. The entire town had searched for him for weeks. The case had gone cold. Until now. Daniels held the photo, heart pounding. Rex sat beside him, now calm, but eyes still locked on the suitcase, as if he knew they had just unearthed a piece of a story that had never been told. A new kind of fear spread across the officers' faces. This wasn't just a clue. It was a message, and someone had left it there, knowing someday someone would find it. The discovery of Ethan's belongings sent a ripple of dread through every officer on site. No one said aloud, but everyone was thinking the same thing. What if the rest of him was nearby? Sergeant Mills immediately ordered a sweep of the area. Crime scene investigators were called in. Drones were launched to scan the nearby woods and abandoned train cars. Cadaver dogs were brought in from a neighboring district. Rex stayed by the suitcase, calm now but vigilant, as if guarding a secret too painful to speak. Officer Daniels stood to the side, still holding the photograph. He couldn't stop staring at the boy's face. That smile, innocent, unaware of the cruel fate that had likely followed. He remembered the day Ethan disappeared. He had been part of the initial search. Hundreds of volunteers combed the town, calling his name, hoping to find him hiding under a porch or wandering the woods. But days turned to weeks, then silence. Until now, one of the cadaver dogs suddenly barked, loud, sharp, insistent. "Over here," an officer called. Behind one of the old train cars, partially buried under broken planks and dirt, they found a shallow pit. Inside were bones, small, fragile. Time had stripped them of identity, but DNA testing would confirm what everyone already knew in their hearts. It was Ethan. Gasps, sobs, and shouts echoed through the train yard. A female officer turned away in tears. Sergeant Mills lowered his head. Even the younger recruits looked visibly shaken. Daniels didn't move. Rex sat by his side, ears back, gaze steady, as if mourning the child too. They cordoned off the area and began collecting evidence. Among the debris in the shallow grave was something strange. A badge. Not a police badge, but a private security emblem. Faded and cracked, but still readable. It belonged to a company called Vanguard Protection Services, a firm that had gone out of business nearly 2 years ago. "That's odd," Mills muttered, examining it with gloves. "We never had private security around here, not back then." Daniels frowned. Unless someone was working off the books. They ran a background check on former Vanguard employees who had lived near Maple Ridge. 3 names came up. 2 had left the state. The third? A man named Curtis Hale, a former guard who lived less than 2 miles from the train yard. Hale had never been questioned during the original investigation. He had no criminal record, no connection to the Collins family. But records showed he had worked as a night shift guard near the park, where Ethan disappeared. Quiet, unnoticed. Until now, a warrant was issued. Officers stormed his old cabin later that night. What they found inside sent chills through even the most seasoned detectives. Children's toys stacked neatly on shelves. Drawings pinned to the wall. A journal filled with unhinged, rambling entries about saving them from the world. Curtis Hale was arrested without incident. His face showed no remorse, no fear, only emptiness. And just like that, the mystery of Ethan Collins unraveled. A suitcase, a dog's instinct, and a town's buried pain finally brought to light. The town of Maple Ridge fell into a stunned silence. For 3 years, the disappearance of Ethan Collins had been a scar the community had buried under time and unanswered questions. But now, that scar had been ripped open. The arrest of Curtis Hale sent shockwaves through the town. People were horrified, not only by what he had done, but by how close he had been all along. A quiet man, a loner, someone most didn't even notice when passing him at the grocery store or the gas station. Detectives began piecing the timeline together. Hale had worked night shifts as a security guard at a construction site near the park where Ethan vanished. Investigators believe he had watched the boy for weeks before making his move. On that quiet summer afternoon, while the playground was nearly empty, Hale struck. Ethan was lured, taken, and kept hidden. For how long? No one knew for certain. The suitcase and shallow grave told the rest of the story. In interviews, Hale offered little explanation. He rambled about rescue and purity, describing Ethan not as a victim, but as someone he believed he was protecting from a world. His journal entries were dark, erratic, and chilling. His delusions ran deep. Forensic evidence confirmed the remains belonged to Ethan Collins. His family, who had moved away after the initial investigation faded, returned to Maple Ridge for a private memorial. His mother, pale and tearful, stood at the train yard fence and placed a single white rose near the police tape. The town grieved with her. A candlelight vigil was held days later. Hundreds gathered in the town square, holding photographs, stuffed animals, and candles. Rex sat beside Officer Daniels during the ceremony, quietly watching the crowd as if he too understood the weight of what had happened. Mayor Clara Benson spoke softly at the podium. "We are a small town, but we are a strong town. And today, we remember Ethan, not just for the tragedy, but for the light he brought into this world." No one left that night without tears. And though the case had finally been solved, the pain would echo for years. But at the center of it all stood the silent hero, Rex, the dog who stopped, who sensed what no human could. The truth was no longer buried. Now it was known. In the weeks that followed, Maple Ridge slowly began to breathe again, but it would never be the same. Curtis Hale remained behind bars, awaiting trial. The evidence was overwhelming. The suitcase, the journal, the remains, everything pointed to guilt. But even as justice moved forward, the community struggled with shared grief. People questioned how such darkness had lived so close. Parents held their children a little tighter. Strangers looked at one another with a trace more caution. Officer Daniels took it the hardest. He had searched for Ethan back when he first disappeared. He'd walked past that train yard 100 times over the years, never realizing the truth had been resting just beneath the surface. Guilt clung to him like fog. But every time he looked at Rex, he was reminded it wasn't too late. Rex became a local legend. Articles were written. News stations interviewed Daniels, praising the heroic K-9, who cracked a cold case with nothing but instinct and heart. But Rex didn't care for the attention. He was just doing what he was trained to do, what he was meant to do. The town council held a ceremony in Rex's honor. Children from the elementary school drew pictures of him. A small bronze plaque was installed near the train yard, in memory of Ethan Collins, and to Rex, whose silence spoke louder than words. Ethan's parents made one last visit to the town before returning to their new home out of state. They met Rex. His mother knelt beside him, running a hand along his fur, whispering a tearful thank you. Rex licked her hand, then sat quietly by her side. It wasn't just a story about a lost boy anymore. It was a story about instincts, about never giving up, about how even the quietest towns, tragedy can hide, and how hope can still emerge from it. The train yard has since been closed off permanently, turned into a memorial garden. Children pass by it now and ask about the dog and the statue. And every time they're told the story, they hear the same ending. Sometimes, heroes don't wear capes or carry guns. Sometimes, they have 4 legs, a nose for truth, and a heart that never quits.